introducing the IoT panel. So let's see if we can get Ben.
Hello, everybody. I'm here. Thanks, Andrea. That was great. Congrats to everybody that won. Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Jorgensen. I'm the CEO of Constellation. Thanks for showing up today. This is pretty incredible. Being on site in LA, it's like seeing the energy is something that is absolutely amazing. I'm going to save a lot of my talk until a little bit later today. So this isn't really about me, but this is the Iot Web3 panel. So I'm going to introduce this panel. Amazing individuals have showed up today from Helium, IoTex, CalChip, and Michael Brandt from Constellation. So are those guys streamed in right now? There we are.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, guys. Good morning or good afternoon.
Hey.
Thank you so much. So let's kick this off. So everybody kind of gets a context. We put together an amazing panel on IoT. And before we really dive into the meat of it all, I think each one of you represents a essential piece in the IoT space. So maybe we'll go around the room, if you will, make a brief introduction to yourself, your role, what your company does. We'll keep it there, and then we'll dive into how you guys all fit into this. So maybe I'll start with TJ. You want to kick it off?
Great, sure. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate the time and for bringing us into this. We're really excited about the panel today. Good to meet everybody. I'm TJ. I'm the president and co-founder of CalChip Connect. My background, I've been in the IoT space for over 8 years. We founded CalChip Connect in 2020, really to focus on being able to provide to the market easily deployable IoT solutions. And then in the summer of 2020, we got introduced to Helium, and we started playing in the blockchain and IoT space, which is very exciting because blockchain brings a lot of value to IoT, and we can talk through some of that, I'm sure, during this panel. But ultimately, we're the largest distributor in North America for IoT today. We were the first distributor for the Helium network. And we're always looking for the next latest and greatest blockchain technology to bring into the portfolio. So we're also working with Constellation and the DTM and looking at various other products we can bring into the portfolio. We're headquartered out of Warminster, Pennsylvania, so just about 45 minutes north of Philadelphia. We've got a 17,000 square foot warehouse. And what we do is we work with partners from all over the world to bring in product into the warehouse and bundle and create, again, easily deployable solutions. We call them plug and play solutions. So, again, look forward to the panel today. Ben and the Constellation team, thank you for bringing us into this, and look forward to having a good time these next 45 minutes here. So.
Yeah, thanks, TJ. That was great. Joey, maybe we hand it over to you since TJ already kind of mentioned your relationship with CalChip.
Yeah, so Helium, if anyone's not aware, is where we built this sort of big decentralized wireless network infrastructure. It's sort of protocol to enable a lot of that. I'm coming here today as a technical director at the Helium Foundation. So we're the nonprofit that oversees the project, the blockchain, the grants program, the governance, sort of every little piece of that. So we work a lot with core developers to make sure that the project is progressing, and we're sort of adding new functionality and bolstering the sort of enterprise grade value of the network. Yeah, we're totally a remote team, so no headquarters for us. I'm sort of calling in remote today. So yeah, we're global, and yeah, I don't know. That's us. We'll get into all the fun stuff here really quick.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. Maybe going into core developers, I'll hand it over to Larry. Larry, fun to see you on here. Actually, funny story of Larry and I. We met on a panel in Dubai. That we had a lot of synergies in our conversation on the panel. We'd never met each other before, and then off the panel, we actually started to form a relationship and a friendship. So, really great to have you on here. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Great to be with a bunch of other blockchain and IoT enthusiasts on a Saturday morning here. I'm Larry, head of business development at IoTex. And IoTex, we're a layer 1 blockchain. We got started back in 2017. And we've always had a vision of combining tamper-proof hardware and tamper-proof software together to enable tamper-proof applications, right? So I think everyone on this panel today is doing different flavors of this kind of token incentivized physical infrastructure. And I think it's going to be the next big thing for crypto. So, it's been a long time coming. We've all been building for several years now, but I think the attention and desire for, this blockchain and IoT intersection is growing by the day. So excited to jam out with the rest of the panelists here this morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. I appreciate that. And to hand it over to Michael Brand from Constellation, who's really kind of representing his career in IoT and the DTM or door traffic miner. Michael?
Hey everyone, Michael here. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Constellation and the acting CEO of Door Technologies. We were acquired by Constellation early last year. And I've been in the hardware space in my career for about 12 years now. And Door I was running for 6 years. And for those who don't know, Door is all about data collection in the physical world. We have this box that you stick above a doorway and it counts them people walk in and out. And the latest product we created was the DTM, which combines data collection with some of the crypto platforms that Constellation was making. So as far as the IoT stack, what I'm really focused on is how can we more effectively collect data in the physical world, and also how can we more effectively distribute that data to people who need it or want it.
Well, thanks, Michael. So let's kick this off. That was a great introduction. What I'm most excited about this panel is that this is a group of individuals that are actually taking blockchain beyond just DeFi, beyond just speculation of the cryptocurrency, and actually tie it into real value. And it really takes kind of all four of you in many different ways to really bring this vision to light. So I want to kick things off and kind of go around and just see how do each of you play in the IoT stack? Can anybody kind of break it down or give us an idea of how each company works together for the audience?
Great. Ben, I can go ahead and jump in real quick if that works.
Yeah, thanks, TJ.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you look at a IoT deployment and putting a solution together and actually getting it out into the market, really there's a few different core segments or areas that make this IoT solution. There's hardware, which usually involves sensors, gateways, devices like the DTM people counter. There's networks, network servers, which are responsible for deduplicating, authenticating packets, taking that data from the devices and actually bringing it into the cloud. And then there's application layers or application servers. So these are what's responsible for actually ingesting the data through an app, right? And being able to send alerts and text messages and all of those things. And then in addition to that, you've got kind of the deployment strategy, right? So how do you take all of these different things that you've put together and actually get them into a easy to deploy model? And that evolves more around logistics, supply chain, and some of those, like non-IoT solution focused areas, but also very important for the customer experience. So when we take a look at, what's really involved in that IoT solution, the hardware, the network server, the application server, what you have to really do is work with these different partners in the ecosystem to create these solutions, right? Because some partners are really good at developing hardware and manufacturing hardware. Some partners are really good with building network servers. Some are really good with building application servers. There are some full stack companies out there that do hardware, network, and application layer efforts. And so when you think about that, it can get very, I guess, complex in the marketplace. You've got vendors all over the world that are developing devices, companies developing networks, application layers. So what we do here at CalChip Connect is we work with all those different partners in the ecosystem. And then depending on the use case or the application or the market need, we bring all these different partners together and we help create a solution that can be deployed into that market, right? So we'll take, I'll give you an example of one. So we worked with a company called Crisis Go. They've got a school safety application and they needed a push button device that teachers could wear around their neck on a lanyard that they would push if there was like a school distress event, which, happens, more than it should today. But what we did is we helped actually bring in all the different pieces of the hardware. We integrated it with Crisis Go's software. We tested the solution, and then Crisis Go launched that solution into the school systems around the nation. And so that's really, where CalChip fits into this ecosystem is we are an agnostic distributor and service provider. We work with the hardware, the network, the application partners in the ecosystem to bring everything together and create those deployable solutions that we call plug and play. And then, again, when we look at the customer experience, so again, there's the hardware, there's the bundling of all of that, but how do you actually get it into people's hands and give them a push button setup, easy experience? And so we work with different partners to also bring that to customers, right? So that, again, as a customer, when you want to deploy a solution, you can purchase that solution, but also be able to get professional installation and other cool services that bring it all together and make it easier for you. As we think about, the incorporation of blockchain into IoT, what's really exciting is if you look back, prior to Helium, right, which was really the first blockchain IoT combination that was providing real world value to those users that are leveraging it. The value that it brings is that, the last 8 years, companies that deployed had to spend a lot of money in CapEx to buy hardware, build the solution, and deploy that. So when you bring in blockchains like Helium or Constellation into products and into these solutions, when you deploy them, they actually, mine cryptocurrency based on the network coverage you've got and various algorithms as well. And so what this is doing for the market, and this is, consumers, businesses, those that purchase the hardware and the solutions actually get incentivized by creating the network. And this is a new concept, but ultimately it's brought a lot of value to the market because now when you're looking at spending, $500 on a solution and you'll make some of that back by deploying it, it brings extra value and you can actually recoup your investment more quickly than that model. And then, of course, when you incorporate blockchain with IoT, you always get that traceability that, blockchain brings with it, additional security, and some of those added layers that, in historical IoT, there have been gaps in before. So ultimately, really excited about this new revolution taking place. I think as you look at Web 3.0 and IoT coming together, the value that it's bringing to the market through incentivization, through added security, through added traceability, these are all things that are going to provide even bring more value into the market. So those are just some initial thoughts, Ben.
Yeah, just to jump on that too, kind of with Door, as we started off as one of those vertically integrated companies that, tries to choreograph all these moving parts. I think a lot of people see IoT and just think of the box, but they don't realize all of the other things, especially customer experience. And, that's what put us ahead of the game when we created our product. Like people don't realize we put an accelerometer on the device, and if someone mounts the device crooked, it actually automatically hits our servers, sends them an email that says, hey, you need to straighten out your device, right? So thinking all the way down to that and logistics, we have custom hardware at the factory where they scan it and send it out to the customers that the device knows where it ends up, right? So all of these little things actually sometimes takes more effort and time and engineering resources to build than the box itself. I argue almost always. And so replacing those different aspects with crypto has also been really cool. Watching Helium has been exciting. Our original device, we had the sensor and a cellular base station to contact our servers. And once Helium came out, said, oh my God, we can get rid of the cellular base station and just run it directly on the device. So that's really where the partnership started. And then taking, notes from their playbook, how can we use those economies of scale to collect and sell the valuable data that's coming out of these sensors? So it's a lot of fun. And it's a lot of moving parts. And I always love talking about, all the things that aren't hardware related that have to do with selling a hardware product, right? Like sending batteries to other countries, right? That's been one of our biggest things, is just logistics and shipping and all of these things. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I'm not sure if
you might be muted there.
Audio on Ben's side is worried. Yeah. But just to piggyback on that, right? Like I think what I think everyone in this space is, touching a lot of different areas, right? There's connectivity, there's data, there's all these different forms of infrastructure that are required to connect hardware and software together. And doing it in a decentralized way makes things a lot more complicated, right? So I think, there's a common kind of framework of thinking about like the application infrastructure life cycle, right? When you build new infrastructure, it's going to enable certain types of applications. Over time, those applications are going to evolve and demand more infrastructure, and that infrastructure is built and enables more applications to be built, right? So I think comparing where blockchain and IoT is versus where DeFi is, a lot of the pillars of DeFi are already built, starting with DeFi Summer back in 2020. You have your lending, your borrowing, your DEXs. I think the same thing is happening with the blockchain and IoT space today. I think, the concept of bringing real world data from trusted devices to the chain, that requires device identity. It requires device oracles. It requires like so many different pieces of infrastructure, right? And, I think everyone on the call today is building some form of infrastructure, whether it's more hardware focused, software focused, connectivity focused. All of these things are going to be composable in the future. And just like Uniswap was the foundation of DeFi that kicked off yield farms and all these different types of variations of DeFi, I think the infrastructure being built today is going to serve as that foundation for all of these real world, step-in like projects, right? That you're pulling data from mobile devices, all sorts of devices, right? And I think there's a lot of big categories of use cases around proving what people do in the real world to earn tokens. I think that's a huge concept. And also giving people ownership of public utilities like Helium has done with their LoRa networks, right? So just getting started here for sure.
Thanks, Larry. And Joe, to kind of pivot over to that, Joey, what are some of the massive use cases that the Helium Foundation is exploring and really backing to, create this exponential shift?
Yeah, so touching a little bit on what TJ was talking about, like LoRaWAN is something that has existed for a relatively long time, right? But what you were seeing before Helium existed was very frequently that these deployments would be made in sort of small clusters. So you own a warehouse, you go deploy some gateways, you can do stuff inside of your warehouse. But very much like the way that the Wi-Fi works inside your home, you go down the block, you're not connected to your Wi-Fi anymore. You're you're within range of a network, but it's not yours. And so Helium has been this opportunity to sort of glue together what would be a lot of different networks. So now we have a globally ubiquitous network. It's actually the largest globally ubiquitous network of any kind. And so now we're starting to see this unlocking of use cases that just were previously impossible for devices like these. So asset tracking is something that's a huge opportunity now that was just something that anyone who was working in the LoRaWAN space commonly disregarded just because they didn't have coverage on freeways, they didn't have coverage, down the street, outside their warehouses, things like that. I spend quite a bit of time working on the Helium coverage map project, and it's one of the coolest things for me. I was doing it this morning, is to pull up that coverage map and just look at like highways like actively getting filled in as people drive with these little GPS trackers down the street. And that's a huge opportunity from the data usage standpoint, because these are devices that people don't need data like once an hour. They need data every like 15 seconds. So the data usage standpoint on this type of use case is huge. Outside of that, I get super excited about smart cities, smart agriculture, applications in environmental science. Like there's a ton of stuff that Helium unlocks for people, both due to the sort of the easy UX that comes with setting up a Helium gateway, as well as just the sort of interest and opportunity around like participating in this blockchain.
Thanks, Joey. I'll kind of dovetail on that and go to TJ. And this is really open to anybody, but I'll kick it off with TJ. I would love to hear how you guys all think about this. Is this concept of smart cities, and really kind of the IoT space in general has been around for 20 years, if I'm getting close, over under a little bit. How is this different? And how are we actually going to see smart cities come alive, and not just the concept of having virtual reality in your city, but actually seeing connectivity? Why is this different than the first IoT boom in the early 2000s?
Oh, great question. So when you think about a smart city and you think about all of the different applications within a smart city, you've got cellular-based applications, and that's really where, in my opinion, smart cities started getting its foundation back, 20 years ago, by creating cellular connectivity infrastructure to be able to allow people and things to communicate through cellular in these cities and provide data to where it needed to go. One of the gaps with that is, when you think about all the different types of connectivity that can bring value to a smart city, you've got your typical cellular devices, right? With phones, laptops, smart watches, those types of things. But the challenge is that those really, they allow you to connect and they allow you to interface with the world, but they don't really gather certain types of data that allow people and users to create more useful outcomes. And so when you think about the IoT after cellular in smart city, you've got Wi-Fi, you've got Bluetooth that has come up. You've got Zigbee that's primarily used in like the home security industry. And so all these have played an important role in shaping kind of the smart city data-driven world. With bringing in LoRa, right? Which LoRa again, LoRaWAN is a specific protocol very similar to Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cellular, in the sense that it's a protocol that's got RF tied to it. But the real value of LoRaWAN is it can travel very long distances compared to the other protocols. And so it does really well in areas where there's a lot of congestion, a lot of building materials, things that are underground. So when you start thinking about those types of applications where, cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth don't do a very good job of penetrating those. That's really where LoRaWAN comes in, which, again, the Helium network is built on LoRaWAN today. That's where that comes in, and again, allows the smart city to become more full in the sense of getting data and providing additional connectivity. And so when you think about like these LoRaWAN sensors, you've got water meters underground connecting by LoRa. You've got sensors that can monitor temp, humidity, water leak inside of buildings. You've got asset tracking solutions, LoRa-based, that can track buses on different routes within these cities. And again, it's a complementary technology to all of the other, cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth type of protocols. And so as we think about the smart city moving forward, as we think about the network that, Helium has created, where it's not so much based on, private individuals or private networks being stood up, but now we've got, essentially a nationwide network that's building around LoRaWAN, thanks to Helium. And so now what we'll be able to do is connect these LoRaWAN sensors within these smart cities and create more meaningful data points, be able to track more things, and be able to gather that data and create new algorithms, new efficiencies for people and for the city, municipalities, and businesses, and ultimately drive, I think, a whole new, market of innovation coming forward within the smart city space.
Thanks, TJ.
So excited about it.
Go for it. Yeah, jump in there, Joey.
Just big plus one. Like the opportunity is endless, and TJ, you just nailed like all of that cool smart city stuff.
I'm going to jump over to Michael and Larry. I would love to, Michael, first, I don't know if you knew this, but there was a memo that you had to wear a black t-shirt. Don't worry about it. Next time we'll get that figured out.
We'll get one over.
But
It's
Michael,
coming in the mail.
It's coming in the mail. I love it. A Helium one. Larry, Michael, how do you guys see cryptocurrency really empowering this IoT space, making this space explode? I think that's a major differentiating factor in this IoT boom that we're going to see.
Yeah, and actually, I can kind of combine this with your last question. I can kind of combine this with your last question a little bit too, in that I think in the last 5 years, something that's really interesting that's happened is that industry has figured out how to make lots of data useful. So I think that's what one of the missing pieces was. And now we have all these big data companies, and pretty much every enterprise company has data scientists on staff. So we're at a point now where you can ingest almost an unlimited amount of data and be able to draw insights out of it. So that goes into where we are now with the IoT boom. We're at a phase now where someone can say, hey, get me as much data as you can collect, and I can do something with it. So now we're at a phase where the roadblock is not making data useful, it's getting as much data as possible. And that's really prime for crypto economies, right? Where you can basically turn an entire community into people to help you run your infrastructure and collect your data. And you can put a money economy into that as well, like we've seen with Helium, where people are mining, and you have hundreds of thousands of people doing this. So I think we're really primed up for this new phase of technology, where the goal is, let's collect as much as possible, and we know it's going to be useful.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, I think, hardware and blockchain is just one of those things that makes a lot of intuitive sense, right? I think from day one here at IoTex, we've always thought that devices and machines are going to be the largest users of blockchains in the distant future, right? And when we think about this blockchain IoT intersection, I think there's two ways to look at it. One is how blockchain is impacting the legacy Internet of Things, and how the Internet of Things is impacting blockchain, right? I think when you think about the blockchain to IoT impact, it's more obvious, right? The Internet of Things, is booming, but it's still riddled with a lot of challenges, right? Interoperability, security, privacy, all things that blockchain have some type of native benefit and can provide value to the existing Internet of Things, right? So we talk a lot about the monetization opportunities. We talk a lot about the new business models that can be created with Web3 and IoT. But I think just the security and the trust of we can look at our devices and understand that these things are working for us and not for someone else. I think that's huge, right? But I also think the more near-term opportunity is how the Internet of Things, as the other panelists have said, can be a brand new data source for blockchains, right? Just going back to the DeFi analogies, right? Like Chainlink established a single version of the truth about what the price of any crypto asset was back in 2020, which really started that whole DeFi renaissance, right? And if we have a single version of the truth about things that happened in the real world, whether it's the temperature in a smart city or how many miles someone has run or what type of road someone has driven or how fast they were driving, all of this is kind of fuel for incentive mechanisms, right? Where people can earn by doing things in the real world or changing the behavior in the real world, right? So the possibilities are really endless. I think once we get past this hurdle of establishing this single version of the truth that everyone can agree on, like this actually happened in the real world, then tying token incentives is the easy part to it, right? So I think this is a challenge that everyone's working on, is how do we establish this trust? How do we grab data in a trusted way from trusted devices to fuel all these different applications we're talking about, right? So that's just kind of how I see both sides of the equation there.
No, that's great. And so I think one of the skeptical things that the crypto community has around IoT is that it's too far away and it's too far in the future. But you know what? DeFi is here, so let's focus on DeFi as it pertains to currency, peer-to-peer transfer. How would you guys argue against that? Where is this IoT space in kind of the actualization of it? Are we 5 years away, 2 years? You guys all have the data. Like, give us some insights on where you kind of think that the growth will happen.
I know TJ's going to have some thoughts on this, but I'll throw some thoughts out initially, which is like, in a certain respect, like there is a certain correctness to that. Like it takes a little bit longer to build hardware and to build solutions when you're sort of like doing this end-to-end experience. However, there are a ton of solutions that exist in the LoRaWAN space already, whether it's AI-powered cameras that can relay the findings over LoRaWAN, or smart, all the smart city stuff, temperature, humidity, things like that. And there are business use cases that are primed for those sensors already. So one of the easiest ones that we start to see, is the asset tracking or cold chain storage. And those are areas where we're already starting to see like some really immense interest, because the scale of the Helium network is at this point basically undeniable. So you could be an existing LP WAN operator, and anyone who's not sort of looking to Helium as a sort of data partner is really missing out at that level.
Thanks, Joey.
Yeah, good. Yeah, great points, Joey. And I think we're really at the bottom of the first inning when it comes to the IoT growth it's currently happening. But I think we're at the very early stages now of this exponential growth. And the reason I say that, there's a few reasons. So just looking back over the last 8 years in the IoT space, personally, I've seen over these last 8 years a lot of people, companies getting started, companies trying to deploy IoT, going through a lot of learnings, right? And quite honestly, a lot of the reason for that is the technology stack, the size of the semiconductor ICs, which impacts the form factor of devices, and ultimately the ability to actually create, put these different pieces together to create the easily deployable solutions. Like that's all been a work in progress over these last, 8 to 10 years in especially the LoRaWAN space. And you've seen LoRaWAN pick up. Like the first full network was, out in Europe. Now we've got Helium building, all across the world. And I think the pivot point for IoT, where we kind of hit the top of the first inning, was really like just during the start of COVID, right? And I mean, if we think about that whole transformation of having to work remote, having to like deal with connectivity every day, and ultimately having to leverage technology to go drive efficiencies during this COVID time, I think has really accelerated IoT. And we've seen it over the last couple of years. Consumers, businesses, to Larry's point, there's a lot of like companies coming in, doing data analytics and algorithms. And so it's all starting to come together now. And the other beautiful thing we're seeing is like the transformation in the IoT space is bringing connectivity to people that have never had it before, right? Like in Africa, South America, and some other third world countries are now starting to deploy this technology, and they're able to connect, and it's improving lives. And so again, I think we're still early on, but we've got the technology built now. There's enough companies that have, joined the bandwagon, so to say, is to be able to build these nice, refined solutions, get more data, more connectivity into the world. And so again, we're early on, but we're very excited because, this is a, 10, 20, 30 year trajectory of growth that, we expect to see coming here. And again, the last 10 years has been a lot of that development, trying to get everything put together. And then, with COVID and with the introduction of Helium and all these things coming together, it's really driving and I think kickstarting the early stage of growth.
Thanks, TJ. That was a really great synopsis of everything going on. It seems to me like I think that there's an argument to be made that cryptocurrency is going to help expand the space really fast. Well, the technology's early, the footprint's being built, applications are starting to come out, and people are starting to see the value. And the other thing is that the average person can't really see how much connectivity is going on. You're not really aware of it. So I think there's a fascinating shift that's happening beneath our feet. That's really exciting. I mean, it's like it's happening faster and faster than we thought. I would love to take like 30 seconds each to go through maybe any company announcements you have. You got some time. Anything you guys want to share as closing remarks? Maybe we'll start with TJ. So we started with you in the beginning.
Sure. Yeah. So, as far as looking ahead, we like to focus a lot on the customer experience here at CalChip. And so we're going to continue to work with our partners in the ecosystem to build, new innovative solutions, right? Especially that can help, support and drive usage on the Helium network. And so a lot of our focus as we move ahead is going to be working with partners to help build more solutions, whether it be an asset tracking, temp humidity, other, and get those into the market, right? So that people can leverage the networks being built. And then the other thing that we're really excited about is, the next stage of Helium, which is Helium 5G. So we're putting together solutions and, helping to, create the opportunity for customers to be able to purchase solutions and go deploy 5G in addition to LoRa, which is very exciting. So those will be kind of the two focus areas as we move ahead. And then we do offer provisioning services, which is an area that we're going to continue to focus on as we move ahead. Again, all trying to make the customer experience easier. So that's the forward looking on the CalChip side.
Thanks, TJ. Joey?
Cool. I'll sort of dovetail off of what TJ was talking about. Like the Helium network, it's not even launched the 5G stuff properly yet, but we're already looking at over 2,000 5G hotspots deployed, which is kind of mind blowing. I'll sort of throw out a couple of cool things happening on our end. One is in September, on September 20th, we're running Helium House in New York, which will be an awesome event. We ran one similarly in Austin earlier this year. And then I think the other thing that I want to call out is oftentimes all of the sort of blockchain, like, somebody was touching on just like the stuff is invisible to us, like the RF around us, like you don't really get to see it. Once you start like working in the Helium project, you start to see antennas everywhere. I think if anyone's listening in that's deployed a 5G or a LoRaWAN gateway, you start looking at the roofs of buildings all over the place. But one of the cool ways to make this more tangible too is like jump on and build a sensor. So, go to CalChip, go to Amazon, just pick up a dev board or a pre-built sensor. One of those temperature humidity sensors are generally pretty easy to get running. And then console.helium.com is where you would go and connect that device, and you can start to make learnings about your environment around you by using these sensors and the existing Helium network that is either deployed in your area or like using your own hotspot. And what was my last thing? Oh, there's so many cool things. All right, let's call it at that. We'll come back around if we got time.
Thanks, Joey. I'll go to Michael Brand.
Yeah, so I could do a little DTM update actually, and Ben, I think this is something you're not even aware of yet. But yesterday we just got a revision of circuit boards for the DTM back from the factory. So this is going to be the final sample of the device. We'll be testing it, and if everything checks out, we're going to be moving into mass production, the DTMs. So super exciting to get that. We're going to be distributing, pictures of the board and some content around that. That's, literally fresh off the press.
Thanks, Michael. Great to hear that while you're on paternity leave and still working.
Yeah.
That was great.
Slack,
Clearly, and you know more than me. Larry, we'll close out with you.
Awesome. Yeah. What I've been up to lately is, starting to incubate some interesting projects, like starting to think about the way to onboard different types of Web2 companies and device manufacturers into Web3, right? And it's a really interesting challenge because not every company wants to launch their own NFT or token, but they do want to plug into.
Check. Can you hear me on this?
Yeah, I think
I don't think they can hear. You can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. I can hear you guys now. Okay. Well, guys, thank you so much for the time today. It was really great seeing you all. Thank you for showing up on a Saturday. I know this is supposed to be everybody's day off, but you know what they say in crypto, you don't sleep with crypto. So no days off. So I can't thank you guys enough. This is a really great panel, really informative, a space I'm personally excited about. Okay. So you guys are good to sign off. Thank you. Have a good day.